thanks. Like, hey, Scoob, did you hear Nikki Blake is hosting a Scooby Doo panel? No. Yeah. Like on today's Scooby Doo episode, Scooby Doo and Shaggy meet Nikki Blake. Yeah, and a Scooby Panel. Like, we need to get this puppy started. Okay, Nikki Blake, take it away, Scooby Doo.
Welcome to the Scooby Panel. I'm your host, Nikki Blake from ScoobyAddicts.com, and today we're going to be talking about what if. Before we begin, I'll have everyone introduce themselves, and Wendy, we'll start with you.
Hi guys, I'm Wendy BRYDGE. I'm a commission artist. I've been collecting Scooby for over 30 years, and surprise, surprise, Scrappy will be joining us tonight. Nikki's thrilled.
So thrilled. Joel?
Hey there, I am Joel from the YouTube channel Planet Scooby.
Excellent. So we're talking what if, and first thing is, what if one of the newer series came before Scooby Doo, Where Are You? Do you think that the franchise would have lasted 55 years? Wendy?
Absolutely not. That's the short answer. And I would say that about all of the series. I don't even though the Scooby Doo show is my favorite, I also don't think that it is the best series. Would it have still had longevity if that had been everyone's introduction to it? Probably, but I wouldn't swear that it would have made it all the way to where it has. I think that Where Are You really was the perfect flagship show. It had everything. It had the right kind of like harmony and balance, and none of the series that came after quite captured it the same way that that original series did. Even the Scrappy episodes, I definitely think, especially when they switched to like the short, like the 7-minute segment ones, definitely would not have lasted. I think that they could get away with doing that when they had the stuff that came before it as like a natural progression to like, oh, let's try something new. But no, I think definitely Where Are You had to be the original. Any of the more modern series, like from 2000 onward, I definitely think would have done, to be honest, the poorest out of all of the series that are available, simply because Scooby has longevity, in my opinion, because of how generic it is. Everyone can relate to everybody in the gang in some way, shape, or form. There's nothing offensive about the characters or how they behave or how they interact with each other. It's very accessible and relatable to pretty much everyone. And I think you need that in order to appeal to a wider audience and to appeal to an audience over a period of time. Because kids in 1969 and kids in 2000 and kids in 2024, kids are kids. And I think that the same general things appeal to them, the same general things sort of spark their imagination. And Where Are You? It just was the perfect vehicle to do that. None of the modern series even have close to the magic of original Scooby. They're far too specific in everything that they're doing and with the characters, and they have very strong and loud traits to them, which kind of turns me off just in general, even watching as an adult. But as a kid, it also would have been something that I wasn't very interested in. And surprisingly enough, I would argue that later iterations of Scooby are actually more dated than the original series. Because I get it, it was 1969, and sure, Freddy wears an ascot, and people don't really, that's not something that you see all the time now. But for all intents and purposes, they look like they could be in any time period. It's really not specific to anything. Everything that, from like the 90s onward, though, you can kind of tell that that was when it was made. And so how can that last for 50 years without feeling dated? So yeah, no. Original Scooby-Doo, I think, was the only choice, the only way that it was going to make it as far as it did. A few other series maybe would have had like more longevity than, say, something like the Flintstones, or the Jetsons. But yeah, they needed, Where Are You was like the perfect little capsule. And even Hanna-Barbera couldn't quite recreate it a second time. So yeah, I think it's the only one that could have done it.
I think it's interesting to think about, like, all of the iterations of Scooby-Doo were based in some way off of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? So what would those shows have been like if they were actually the first one? Because the writers and creators of the characters would have had to have come up with something on their own. They wouldn't have had Where Are You to base it on. And that is an interesting thing for me to think about. I'm not sure if anyone could ever really answer that question, because they all did base it off of Where Are You? But it's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Joel, do you think Scooby would have lasted over 50 years if a different series was first?
I agree with like everything you both have said, Wendy, Nikki, what you both said. It might have lasted 50 years, but we'd never get that first season, right? That's what I'm kind of thinking of now. We wouldn't get those amazing episodes like Spooky Space Coop that just wouldn't exist, or even What a Night for a Night, or all of them. They could never recreate that. You can't have the Scooby-Doo show and then go back to Where Are You ever, because it's just not possible. Because like you both said, it kind of built off what happened in season one. Like every iteration is based on that. So, but I could see it lasting 50 years if they started with the Scooby-Doo show, especially season two. Like, it is cool, but it wouldn't have been as awesome. Like this 50 years, and so much like calls back to it. Like, we wouldn't have Scooby Natural because there would be no Night of Friday's No Delight. That episode wouldn't exist, right? And all the movies, they kind of always harken back to the earlier episodes. Even the movies, the live action movies, they pull so much from Where Are You that it'd be a very different Scooby-Doo world out there.
I was thinking, like, could it have lasted that long if Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated was first? People love that series, but I almost feel like that would have just been the end of Scooby-Doo if that came first.
I agree.
Yeah.
Would that air in like the time it aired in? Like, when did it air? Like 2006 or something? Or would you say you start with that 55 years ago or 50 years ago?
Yeah, if you started with it 55 years ago.
Oh, 1969.
Or even if it did air and whenever it actually aired, would it have continued the franchise for 50 years? Yeah.
Yeah, it's in a weird way, it's such a carbon copy of so many other shows. Just like the feeling of it, like there's just nothing special about it. It was okay. It was a good show and everything, but I can't even really imagine another season of it, let alone another 50 years of it. I mean, where do you go from there? I mean, maybe there is a place to go from there, but I can't envision it. I can look back and I can honestly say, I would love it if there were more episodes of Where Are You? And I feel like that type of creativity that was in that series, kind of endless possibilities, because all you really need is a cool villain and a cleverly written mystery, which detective stories, how many have there been, since Poe wrote Murders in the Rue Morgue, in the 1800s? Tons of them. But stuff like Mystery Incorporated, it's just, I can't even, thinking about how it was written and how it was just created. I'm just like, yeah, it's like, it's done. It feels like it's done. And there's nothing more to like resurrect it or bring it back.
Imagine if Velma came first.
Ugh. I'd rather not imagine that.
What if Scooby-Doo was a sheepdog? Do you think that he would have lasted as long as he has? And could you imagine having a whole room full of sheepdog merchandise? Joel?
I like sheepdogs. I'll start off with that, but no, I think this show might have a different tone as well. Like, I don't think you could have a cowardly sheepdog because they're kind of dogs that are meant to protect and, protect the herd or whatever. They're a little more brave. And I think the jokes would be more geared towards their hair in their eyes and they just be bumping into things, maybe. Like, it'd be just a different tone in the show and probably not as spooky, more silly, I would imagine. Not as, I don't think the mystery would be there either with the sheepdog. I just can't imagine it being anywhere near the same.
Yeah, I can't see a sheepdog solving like crime, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels more like a preschool kind of thing than having it geared towards older kids or even adults. And I just think that'd be weird. Wendy, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. And we did kind of get like a little taste of this in, oh goodness, maybe it was both. I can't remember if it was either or if it was both of them, but in Scooby Doo Goes Hollywood, didn't they have like a sheepdog type character that tried to take over for Scooby? For some reason I was thinking maybe there was something in 13 Ghosts too, but that's not, I don't think that was what that was. I think it was the Hollywood movie.
Was Annie a
But
sheepdog?
I think so.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she kind of fit that like dumb persona, which is like, I agree with Joel. It would totally change the dynamic of the show because a sheepdog just kind of evokes a certain characteristic. Whether it's accurate or not is not the point, but I feel like that is what I would think. It would be silly and kind of a dumb character, whereas a Great Dane, even one drawn like Scooby, where, he's meant to be not the perfect kind of looking Great Dane. But I think that's part of the joke is that they're a very imposing dog. You would think that they would be, they look like they might be a little bit vicious or something or dangerous, but really they're just kind of big and clumsy. And so you can play off of that. Whereas with the sheepdog, it looks big and clumsy, even if it isn't. And I don't think that there's any way of like getting around what it looks like. And Scooby's just so distinctive looking. Sheepdog, it's just like a big fluff. It doesn't really have any physical character to it. It's just like a little bit boring. So yeah, I don't think the sheepdog would have been a good idea. The Great Dane, I think, was the appropriate choice for what Scooby needed to be.
This is the early concept art for Scooby that was at the Indianapolis Children's Museum for the exhibit. And it's cute. He's cute, but I don't know. I can't see having a room full of that. I don't know. I feel like it wouldn't have the same effect. Like I wouldn't want to collect a bunch of merchandise that looked like a sheepdog. That'd be really weird. It's really weird to think about it.
Yeah.
Like what ifs, like it really gets you thinking and you're just like, yeah, what if that happened? It's so weird.
You kind of broke my brain just these questions.
What if Frank Welker voiced Shaggy and Casey Kasem voiced Fred? Wendy?
I would really like to hear them interacting together as the opposite character, because I'm not sure that it wouldn't necessarily work. I think it probably could. I mean, we're very used to the way it is, but Frank does a lot of sort of silly type voices. And Casey's like speaking voice is it's quite nice and it's pleasant to listen to, which is how I feel about Frank when he's doing Fred. I'm like, it's just a very pleasant voice. And it kind of has a bit of like command behind it, even if he's not trying. And Casey's regular voice also kind of has that. So I don't think it necessarily would have been bad to have them the other way around. I would be curious to know, I would love to know why, given that they each wanted the other role, what it was about them that they were like, no, you do this one and you do that one, even though you want the opposite. Like, I would like to know what it was about them that the people in charge wanted to see it that way. I would love to know what, because when I listen to them, I'm kind of indifferent to it. I think it would have also worked the other way around. I really don't have any problem with that, because I think both of those actors were capable of doing both types of voice without any trouble. So yeah, I would love to actually like see something dubbed the other way. Not advocating people using AI, like please don't do that, but also I would be interested to see Frank's voice coming out of Shaggy.
If it happened from the beginning, it would be normal and we wouldn't even be talking about what if. But it would be really weird, and I think it would change the dynamic of the characters, because I don't see Casey Kasem's Shaggy voice coming out of Fred and Fred being the leader of the gang with that voice. Just like I don't see Frank Welker voicing Shaggy and being the comedian. So like my brain can't comprehend it. Joel, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, like similar thoughts to Wendy. But I also want to be a bit contrarian too, or not contrarian, or I want to maybe look at the other angle. Like, I kind of think anyone could voice Fred.
Okay.
Because he's kind of square. Not anyone, but like Fred's probably not a hard character to voice. But I think Casey Kasem doing Shaggy, it's just so intertwined with Casey Kasem's persona now. Like, it's hard to separate the two. And anyone doing Casey Kasem or Shaggy after, like, they have to just basically do Casey Kasem or try their best to do Casey Kasem. Like, if someone took over Fred, they could probably go in a different way. Even Frank Welker's voiced Fred differently now than he did back then. And he's still the same voice, but it's a different character, right? We've seen Fred evolve so many ways, like to the with male bimbo or whatever they call it, or like it's just so different. Where Shaggy stayed consistent throughout. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but
it makes sense.
Yeah.
But I still think we could have, like, season 1 of Scooby Doo, Where Are You would have been exactly pretty much the same, because they're still kind of defining those characters. And they played around with Freddy in even the new Scooby Doo movies. Remember, they kind of made Fred a bit jokey. That cactus scene where he's joking about women, and then he's a bit jealous in the Hagglethorn Hall one over Davy Jones. That's pretty much the only sense of humor scenes I can think of with Fred. And then they scrapped it and they just made him kind of the straight man again. But yeah, it would be weird. And I think maybe they went with Casey Kasem for Shaggy because Casey Kasem probably had his DJ career at the time. And he's more in touch with the teenagers, right? And probably more in touch with like what kids were kind of saying, and because kids were probably calling in all the time, talking to him, demanding they play some Beatles song or whatever, Rolling Stones, whatever was hip at the time. So I think maybe he is more in tune, even though Frank Welker was probably in his early 20s back then. He's 78 now, so I Googled it earlier.
And now we have the what if question that Wendy had spring up. What if Scrappy was never introduced into the franchise? Would Scooby Doo have continued? Wendy, I'll let you take this one first.
Well, thank you. Well.
Oh no.
Oh,
Scrappy invasion.
What would we do without you?
We wouldn't have as many nightmares.
Oh, stop. Nightmares. I'm gonna hold him up the whole time now, just for that. Whole time. It's gonna look there. It's looking right at you.
He is very cute though. He's a very pretty scrappy looking Scrappy.
Yeah, he's pretty cute. Yeah. I will be, I will admit that the Scrappy episodes are probably not the best that the series, like the whole franchise, has to offer. However, I do feel like Scrappy was a natural progression for a show that they were trying to keep going. In season 1 of Scooby Doo and Scrappy, all they're doing is they are introducing a new character to the current lineup. Scrappy's not replacing anybody. He's not changing anything about what's already there. Now, obviously, just something new being there is going to make a change. I understand that. But he's not meant to change what already is. He is just an addition to. And with a lot of series, when they want to keep it going, what do? They introduce a new generation. Anybody watches Degrassi? Different generations of Degrassi. That's not an uncommon thing when they want to do stuff. And so that's how I look at Scrappy, is they're like, okay, well, we like our show, but we need something fresh and new. So, okay, let's bring in the next generation. Once they did that, then I think it gave them the courage to say, okay, now can the show survive if we change the show itself and we get those little shorts? We lose the rest of the gang and it's just Scooby and Shaggy and Scrappy, and probably didn't go over as well as they thought it would, although it obviously went over well enough because there's quite a few episodes of those. So breathed a little bit of something new. It was still familiar because Scooby and Shaggy are there, but it was something new. It was a new take on it. Then they're like, okay, well, this kind of worked, but not really. And then they sort of started going back, and we get Daphne back, and we get more the mysteries coming back into it. And then we get a few guest spots with Velma and Fred coming back. And then we end up with 13 Ghosts, where, yes, it's only a few members of the gang, but I feel like for the most part, it's a return to the idea of a straight mystery, like we got in Where Are You? And then the Scooby Doo show. So they kind of came full circle with it. But I do think that, I mean, I'm probably the odd man out. I don't like things to change. I don't like things to be new. You could show me the same procedural for 50 years. I mean, if they were still doing like Bonanza, but it was like Ben Cartwright's ghost that was like running the Ponderosa, I would still be watching that show and I would find it interesting. But most people are probably not like that. They like something new. You know, you go out like, oh, let's go to the restaurant. Well, what haven't we tried yet? Let's try something new. Yeah, that's not me. So the majority of people are going to be your target audience. They want something new. Let's try something new. Scooby's been around for, over a decade. What can we do? Let's start slow. We'll introduce a new character. Then we'll sort of do a spin-off. Maybe season 2 of Scooby Doo and Scrappy is more like a traditional spin-off where you're taking the characters out of their main setting and you're changing the setting a little bit. Then they came back to it. Sometimes when you deviate from a thing that is loved, that is enough on its own to, if you start going back to what it was, it will bring in the viewers again because they realize how much they enjoyed the original and they want that back. So I think Scrappy kind of, in a roundabout way, saved the franchise in a number of different ways. And it also did show that the premise of the show and the character of Scooby and Shaggy in particular, because they are the constant through the entire franchise. We always have them. It did show that you could do different things with them and people would still be interested because they loved the characters. Was it as popular? Maybe not, but there was still enough people hanging on that you could make a go of it. And I think that if they had gone right into a spinoff with Scrappy, like if we didn't have season 1 where it's the whole gang and then just Scrappy added on, and they had went right to, oh, let's get rid of the gang and it's just the 3 of them, I think that probably would have tanked the show rather than save it. I don't think that would have been a good choice because that's too much. That's way too far removed from what Scooby is. And the whole point was like, save Scooby. so it needed to stay pretty much the same thing, but they got to try something new. So I think Scrappy opened the door for them to continue in a number of ways. And I mean, these days I'm a little like I'm done with them trying stuff that's new, to be honest. I'd rather that they just stop. But I do love everything Scrappy through Pup Scooby. Even when they deviated from the original concept a little bit, I still love it. And I think that it's really, really cool. And so, yeah, I think Scrappy is the hero, which is what I always knew. Nikki, you'll come around eventually.
Never.
Eventually, we're going to convince you.
Never.
Yeah.
Joel,
We
what are
needed
your
Scrappy.
thoughts on Scrappy? And if he wasn't introduced to the franchise, do you think it would have continued?
I think it would have continued, yeah, but not
Wow.
maybe in the 80s. I think they might have done 13 Ghosts, but I'm thinking, or they definitely would have done a pup named Scooby Doo, but I think it's really Zombie Island that brought Scooby back into this newest era, and that's already like 25 years old. But financially, I think Scrappy was a great idea for Hanna-Barbera, because in the 80s, the early 80s, it was just about selling, like the cartoons were just about selling toys, cereal, fast food. Like I was watching it around then, it was just always McDonald's commercial with all the people dressed up, and it was your G.I. Joe toys, your Star Wars toys. If you're a girl, you'd get like Easy Bake Oven, Spiral Doodle, and Light Bright and stuff like that. And it was just because they didn't have like the strict advertising laws back then for kids. So the one of those shorts, you have 7 minutes, and you can give the kids more ads, and then you have a Richie Rich thing, and then another Scooby thing, and you're just being bombed with ads. And then once they got those ads in place, we kind of shifted away from cartoons, and we went to like Saved by the Bell and all that boring stuff. But yeah, I think financially it was great because we also have like a ton of Scrappy merchandise out there, all that theme park stuff. So like if we didn't have Scrappy, I don't know if Scooby would have been represented in theme parks, right? Which we would have lost like a ton of fans, because that's how people maybe got introduced to Scooby Doo, is just going to a theme park versus maybe the cartoon. Those later iterations when Scooby came back, I couldn't even get that on my like it wasn't even showed on my TV because I was still on aerial. So I could never get it. I couldn't even get, so from 1979 to, I couldn't get, but I could get the Richie Rich one. I think that was 2 seasons. But when they brought Daphne back, even 13 Ghosts, I couldn't get that. And there was just so much competition too, because everyone was just pumping out cartoons. You had like a Mr. T cartoon, you had Punky Brewster, and you had all sorts of, yeah, G.I. Joe, you had real Ghostbusters by the time everything came out, like the 13 Ghosts and Pup Named Scooby Doo, which everyone seemed to love. So even Pup Named Scooby Doo is hard to get airtime in my city. You had to decide between some heavy hitters back then too, which was kind of challenging because you didn't have a VCR to tape these things, and I'm just going on, so I'll shut up now.
I agree with you. I think if anything saved the franchise, it was Zombie Island. It was not Scrappy. I think Scrappy made people love Scooby more, and because they wanted him to go away so that they could focus on Scooby and the gang. But yeah, I definitely think that if anything saved the franchise and kept it going, it was Zombie Island.
Well, don't forget, there's 20 whole years between Scrappy and Zombie Island. That's a really long time.
It is.
So Zombie Island saved it after that, but what would have saved it going all the way, like 20 years is a long time.
I think it was still Scooby. People love Scooby. I don't know anyone that has a room full of Scrappy. Only Scrappy.
Oh, that's because there's not enough of it. I would have that room. If there was enough Scrappy stuff to do that, oh man, yeah, I would do it. Yep.
I'm still giving credit to Scooby. Scooby saved himself. He's lovable. Scrappy's not. Look at him.
Look how cute he is. You can't even. Don't even pretend that you didn't message me and you're like, oh yeah, I guess he is kind of adorable. Don't even pretend that.
I already said on here that he was cute and he looked very Scrappy-like. but not cute enough to save the franchise.
Maybe not. It's okay, dear.
Any final thoughts on our what if questions? Joel?
My brain's broken enough, so I have no more thoughts.
Wendy?
It is fun to wonder about how things would be, and it's, I mean, in some ways I wish that it was possible to like have an alternate universe that you could visit and like actually go back in time and be like, okay, we're going to make this choice instead of that choice, and like actually get to see like sped up what would have happened, because obviously none of us can say for sure. Everything is just conjecture because we don't even know why certain choices were made. We can speculate on them, you know, but we don't know for sure. But it would be neat if we could actually be able to like see that alternate reality where something different was done, to know that. But I think the bottom line is, though, Scooby is something very special, because no matter how many times they tried to recreate him in other series, it just didn't work. It was okay, but it just didn't work the same. And Scooby is that like once in a lifetime lightning in a bottle. Whatever it was about him that made him so lovable and gave him the longevity that he has, no one, I really don't think anyone will ever replicate that. I don't think it's possible. And I'm just grateful that we got Scooby. I'm grateful for Scrappy, however he came about. But yeah, to anyone though that is like with new Scooby, like, guys, leave our Scooby alone, because what you're doing, you're going to kill the franchise. That's what they're going to do. They're going to kill it. And we don't need that. We need to keep our Scooby and Scrappy and everybody alive.
I do like your idea of an alternate universe where we can just kind of go and we can be like, okay, let's do this test and let's put Scooby Doo Mystery Inc. as if it was the very first series and just see like how people react. That'd be fun. It'd be interesting. But it can't happen. So I guess people will just have to let us know in the comments what they think about what if, because I'm interested to know what other people think. Like, do you think Scooby would have lasted 50 years? Do you think Scrappy saved the franchise? You know, if Scooby was a sheepdog, would you have a whole room full of sheepdog stuff? I mean, there's got to be a person in this world that loves sheepdogs enough to have a room full of them, right?
Probably is.
Oh yeah.
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 If you know that person, let me know. I would like to see pictures.
They're probably in the UK somewhere.
Yeah. Do they like sheepdog more than people in the US?
I think so. Yeah, I think they're. I just imagine some lady with sheepdog, you know, those plates. Remember the plates?
Oh, okay.
I love those
Yeah.
plates. Yeah.
Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah.
Maybe a Scooby Doo tea set, or not, or a sheepdog tea set.
Yeah.
Whew.
Was the Archie dog a sheepdog? The
Yeah,
Archie.
hot dog. I guess hot dog would have been a
Yeah.
type of sheepdog. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Well,
we had Mr. Muggs. I don't know if anyone knows Mr. Muggs. It was a children's book in the 80s, 70s, and 80s. It was that's why I think UK, because the UK author wrote Mr. Muggs.
Mm.
Okay.
And it just taught kids how to read, preschoolers how to read. Very popular. I get not popular enough, I guess, but someone probably knows Mr. Muggs besides me.
Yeah. There were sheepdogs in the raccoon cartoon series.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And they were actually pretty smart. They weren't like the dumb stereotype, if I remember. It's been a long time, but yeah. Maybe it could have worked. Probably not, though.
No.
Probably not.
No.
Yeah. We'll never know. So we're going to wrap things up. Before we do, let everyone know where they can find you on social media. And Wendy, we'll start with you.
You can find Scrappy. You can find Scrappy with me anytime. If you're looking for Scrappy, just come find me, because that's where he'll be. Don't go to Nikki's house, because there's no Scrappy there. It's fine. It's a no Scrappy zone. It's okay. You can find me on Instagram at BRYDGE. On Twitter, I'm Wendy Loves Jesus, and my blog is wendylovesjesus.wordpress.com.
Joel?
You can find me on YouTube, just YouTube Planet Scooby.
And you can find all my links on ScoobyAddicts.com. Please let us know your answers to these what if questions. And thank you for joining us for another Scooby panel. Thank you for tuning in to another Scooby panel. I'm Nikki Blake from ScoobyAddicts.com. If you like these panels, please subscribe to my channel for more great discussions. A huge shout out to our patrons, Julie Rosen, Ross from ScoobyFan.net, Tagus, Elizabeth Maloney, Reese, Garrett Spencer, and Paul the Scooby Dude. If you would like to support the Scooby panel, please go to patreon.com/ScoobyAddicts. A very special thank you to artist, blogger, and Scooby collector Wendy BRYDGE and Joel from Planet Scooby. Scooby Panel is available in podcast form on most podcast platforms or as a web series on YouTube. You can find Scooby Panel on Instagram, Facebook, and X as @ScoobyPanel. Scooby and Shaggy were voiced by Scott Innes. Check out Scott's website, onescottshop.com. We are part of the Collector's Maze Network, where you can find all things geek. Scooby Addicts artwork by Will Davenport, Scooby Panel logo by Garrett Spencer, video editing by Nikki Blake, music composed and performed by Bovine Nightmares. Please join us next time for another Scooby panel.